One of the worst things a movie can do is waste a cool idea. Vampire cops could be awesome. And yet here we are. Night Patrol is directed by Ryan Prows, and it is about the LAPD, who has this special task force that operates at night, and they focus on gang activity, and they are secretly vampires. Got a pretty solid cast. Justin Long, I usually like seeing him pop up in horror movies. Dermot Mulroney's in it a little bit. RJ Cyler, Jermaine Fowler. There's some potential here for something really cool, even though it's on the lower budget side of things. You could make this work, and yet this is so messy. There's some fun to be had, especially once you really get into the vampire stuff. It's nothing you really haven't seen before, but the bloodshed that you want to see is there. There's some solid practical effects. Vampires getting shot to pieces because of all this gun violence in these dangerous neighborhoods and that the police themselves are perpetuating, and then they just regenerate and keep on coming. People getting their throats ripped out. There's some cool stuff. And the performances are good across the board. Nobody has any incredible material to work with, but I think everybody was doing a solid enough job. Visually, like putting us into this neighborhood and making us feel like this is a real place that we're grounded in. There's some decent aspects technically to this movie, but the way the story is done here, I was actually shocked to find out that this movie has 4 writers. Shocked because it really should not have taken that many people to give us the product we ultimately got. But it also makes a lot of sense because this is really unfocused, especially if you're here for the vampire stuff, which, let's be honest, you are, because that's the premise of the film. It's in the trailer, it's the poster, it's the synopsis. It's not a secret, it's not a twist. That is the selling point. And yet you don't get any full-fledged vampirism stuff until basically the third act. It's teased in little tiny pieces, like, oh, they'll take a little bit of blood on their finger and lick it up, so you know that they're vampires. But anything where they're actually really being vampires in full is saved all the way until the end. It's like, man, that's what we're there for, though. And you could compare it to something like Sinners, but first of all, Sinners is miles better than this movie in every single category, but also the vampires are approaching throughout Sinners. We've got our characters, we're establishing them, and the vampire threat is slowly on its way. With this movie, the Night Patrol vampire guys are in the whole movie. We're constantly following them. We're constantly seeing all these actions that they're taking. We're just not seeing them be vampires. So for a huge chunk of the movie, if this wasn't a vampire story, it would be exactly the same. If this was just a movie about corrupt, racist cops, it would be the same until the very end. I get where the idea came from. You want to criticize the police, the systemic issues within the country. Let's turn them into classic movie monsters. Seems like it could work really well. But the way they actually do it here, the two ideas, the two sides of the story, the cop side and the vampire side, actually just end up clashing with each other. The cop side takes over for almost the whole movie, so you barely have time for the vampire side, so you don't really get to explore that lore in any really kind of deep or interesting way. And then the fact that you do have to make time for the vampire side takes away from the cop side. There are issues within the police force, and a lot of racist assholes have guns. That one sentence that I just said is as deep as it is explored here. It's so incredibly surface level that you don't really get anything out of it. And I think one of the biggest issues is also that there's not really a main character. It's also really messy in that way. I thought we were going to be following RJ Cyler. He's a gang member who at the very beginning says that he wants to get out. He wants to move away from that life. So I thought, okay, that's a fine character to follow. But then we're not really following him. We're going to cut over to Justin Long and Jermaine Fowler as these cops for a while. We're going to follow the Night Patrol guys for a while. We're going to follow the other gang guys sometimes. And it's really more of an ensemble in that way. And I don't think it needed to be. I think you really should have stuck with a strong focus on one character that I could really get attached to. Because as it is, you've got all of these guys who are either racist vampires, gang members, corrupt cops in other ways, and a couple characters who are kind of likable, and yet they just don't get enough focus when they should have been the focus. So even when it does try to go a little bit more in depth with its commentary, like the police trying to turn these black civilians against each other and things like that, and commenting on the past of RJ Cyler and Jermaine Fowler's family and how they ended up in the position they're in, it just doesn't really hit that hard because I'm not very invested in these characters because the story has been so unfocused. It's like each one of the 4 writers wrote a different section of the movie. There are also some directorial attempts here to make things a little bit more stylish, and I don't think they had the budget, the time. I don't know what it is. I don't know who to blame, but I just don't think they pulled it off. Some of the things they do, the way they choose to shoot certain scenes to try to add to the intensity or make it look a little bit more unique. Like in particular, there's a chase scene in the 3rd act where a couple characters are running from vampires, and the way they shoot this to make it seem like the vampires are catching up and like scratching at these characters, it was shot so strangely, where our characters are supposed to be running in slow motion, but it doesn't look like they're actually moving at all. It looks like they're just doing this and running in place, and they occasionally go like, ah, to imply that they've been scratched, and I'm like, what's happening? There's no sense of space. Are the vampires just like surrounding them and having like a practical joke and scratching them? Like, it has been established that the vampires are trying to catch these people, but you're telling me that they're just like close enough to keep scratching them over and over again, but they can't do anything else. You're not showing a wider shot to show where the vampires are or what is happening at all. I don't know what's happening. There's so many areas where this just doesn't come together. It's too unfocused. It's a waste of a cool idea. Criticize these issues all you want. There are certainly things to be said about how these systems can be abused, how people can exploit their power, how neighborhoods like the ones depicted in this movie became the way that they are. But this was just not really the way to do it. This is super surface level, and it doesn't really explore either side of the story, the cops or the vampires, in a satisfying way. I would say like a 5 out of 10 at best. I was entertained by the actors and the vampire stuff at the end. I can't call it good, though. It's leaning more in like the 4 or 5 area. Not one I can really recommend, even to vampire fans, because you don't get much. Also, the ending. The ending was super abrupt. It was weird. Anyway, if you've seen this movie, leave your thoughts in the comments. This was all just my opinion. Did you get into it way more than I did with the characters and the themes or the vampire stuff? Did you think it was as messy as I did? Whatever you thought, leave it down in the comments. We can talk about it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. If you want to see more from me, I appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time.